August 14th. There's been some sort of an attack. Oh God. Oh God.
A brutal encounter deep in the wild left a seasoned hunter shattered and bleeding. This isn't a myth. It's the most savage Bigfoot attack ever recorded. Watch, question, and decide. Hidden in the shadows of America's dense wilderness lies a violent mystery few dare to believe. This is the most savage Bigfoot attack ever recorded. Raw, unnerving, and backed by real evidence. No legends here, just chilling facts and a survivor's nightmare that changed everything. What really happened deep in those woods? In the cold stillness of a winter night, a lone figure sets up camp deep in a forest known more for whispers than welcome. With snow on the ground and temperatures dropping steadily, Jer Bear, host of Exploring with Bear, returns once again to Bigfoot territory. But this time, the silence around him carries an edge, and what follows will test every limit of his courage. It's just after nightfall. The fire behind him flickers weakly against the darkness. The temperature hovers around 25 degrees Fahrenheit and is expected to fall to 12 by dawn.
It is so much creepier out here at night when you're all alone. I don't know if you guys seen last week's video, not part one of this one, but last week's. There was a light that I captured at nighttime.
Inside his tent, the setup is modest but carefully thought out. Thermal blankets, layered clothing, 3 tea candles for warmth, and an emergency biofuel canister, just in case the MRE heater fails again. The woods beyond the fire's reach are shrouded in shadow. A week earlier, Jer Bear had captured unexplained lights deep in those very trees. Lights where no trails lead and no homes exist. Tonight he scans the same area. Nothing, just dense forest and the creeping cold.
It's a tree squeaking. Sounds like something walking.
Then the sounds begin. Jer Bear steps outside with his flashlight and tries a few wood knocks, 2 clean strikes, a quiet challenge to the unknown. Something stirs in the distance. There's no knock in return. But the strange light from his previous visit is gone. The forest feels heavier now, not in sight, but in presence. Each step away from the tent feels like entering another world, a darker one. Cold creeps in hard now. His fingers are nearly numb. Breath fogs in the beam of the flashlight. Then, something shifts. Without warning, a low, guttural growl rises from the dark. Not close, but not far either. It's raw, like air being forced through a heavy chest. And it isn't followed by footsteps, just silence.
Something was growling out there. I am armed, but man, that sounded scary. See if it growls again.
His heart races. He is armed, but instinct tells him this is no ordinary animal. It wasn't the bark of a coyote or the distant rumble of a bear. It was something else, brief, primal, and unsettling.
That was scary. My heart's about to pound out my chest. That was a crazy sound.
No visual confirmation, no further sound, and yet, the feeling of being watched doesn't leave. Hours before, the camp had seemed quiet, routine even. But as the night deepens, each flicker of firelight seems more fragile. The heaters fail to hold warmth. The candles burn down, and the wind, once steady, now shifts irregularly, as if following something moving just beyond sight. Inside the tent, silence presses in. There's no more movement, no more sounds. But that moment, the growl, the pacing, the whistling, hangs heavy. Watch closely again as the pacing first begins. Watch yourself.
Alright guys, you know what we gotta do now, right? We gotta call Bigfoot. Couple knocks. See if he knocks back tonight.
It's quiet, almost unnoticeable, but distinct. Something is there. By morning, no footprints are found, no broken branches, just the memory of something circling, breathing, and warning. Jer Bear has explored abandoned asylums, haunted homes, and hidden trails. But this night stands apart, not for what was seen, but for what was sensed. An invisible presence that left behind no trace, but a lasting unease. So what did he hear? Was it a territorial animal? A trick of the wind? Or was it something deeper, something ancient, that simply watches and waits in the colder corners of the forest? The answer remains unclear. But one thing is certain, some places never truly sleep. A familiar trail winds through the heart of Alberta's Nordic region, quiet, rugged, and steeped in unexplained stories. It's the same route taken during Supernatural Sasquatch Part 2, now revisited under different conditions. The snow has melted, revealing clearer paths, but with thaw comes other challenges. Mud clings to the trail's low spots, and beneath a serene landscape, something waits. The journey begins smoothly. The terrain is manageable, undulating hills, quiet creeks, and a strong sense of solitude. But by the 4th kilometer, trouble strikes. A new pair of boots fails catastrophically, creating blistering wounds that turn every step into a test of will. Watch yourself.
This is a really bad blister and it's already opened up, and I'm predicting that the one on the other foot will open up as well. Whew. It's about the size of a toonie, like a Canadian toonie.
The raw moment he reveals the open, torn skin, already the size of a toonie, and the realization that this hike won't be forgotten easily. Despite the pain, the exploration continues deeper into the backcountry. Here, scattered encounters echo through the local folklore.
This Nordic area is just beautiful, and like I've said before in other videos, the Nordic area is perfect for Sasquatch activity. There's so many
Strange leaf structures found at a waterfall, woven, stacked deliberately, are described in quiet detail. Not something left by weather or chance. Just beyond that, another form of human disregard is noted: used toilet paper, discarded by hikers too careless to bury their waste. Nature, beautiful as it is so, carries the scars of both mystery and neglect.
So I'm finally down near the river. I'm not exactly at the area I camped in before, but I just wanted to stop and make a point of something when I'm like recreating in the backcountry.
Approaching the river, familiar ground returns. The terrain opens into gravel flats and eroded cliffs, revealing hoodoo formations sculpted over millennia. The wind stirs across the valley, washing over scenes that feel untouched and yet unnervingly watched. Wildlife signs are present: elk tracks, droppings, but no bears, no predators, not yet. The investigator travels light, relying only on bear spray for defense. The silence deepens. In tall willow groves, the trail turns thick and muddy, the kind of place where visibility vanishes and every step could be your last.
Continuing along the trail, I'm in this really weird willow area, and the trail is super muddy, and it's kind of a pain to get through, but...
As the trail narrows and the daylight begins to fade, the tension grows quietly. Then, without warning, a large impression in the earth appears. Faint, but unmistakable. Not a fresh print, but old and wide, with pine needles settled inside. There's no defined heel or toe, just a shallow midsection, a ridge along the middle that matches what some researchers call the mid-tarsal break.
Just coming down the trail from that way, going this way, and there's an impression here in the ground. Now, if you look at it...
In Bigfoot research, that subtle curve is significant. It's a biomechanical anomaly tied to how these creatures are believed to walk. Yet here, skepticism balances the excitement. Could it be from another hiker? Possibly, but why only one? And why so large? Watch yourself.
You know, in the Bigfoot world, we call that the mid-tarsal break. Ooh, the legendary mid-tarsal break.
As he inspects the print, note the careful pacing, the way the muddy trail silently holds its secrets. This part of the Nordic region, near the David Thompson Highway, has long been a magnet for unexplained events.
And you can see whatever it is was heavy enough or slid enough to kind of push the dirt up. You know, it kind of squished it up about an inch, a little more than an inch.
From the Bighorn Dam sightings in the 60s to more obscure rock-throwing incidents near local waterfalls, the forest seems to breathe with stories. And it's here, far from roads and behind layers of wilderness, that encounters most often occur. One track, strange lights, unsettling stillness, all hint at something not fully understood. Watch for yourself.
Sasquatch being actually making one of these structures, you know, what can we say, really? We need to see that happen. We need to get it on video. We need to get photographs of it. We need to get some sort of evidence.
In a landscape this vast, it's easy to be watched without knowing, and harder still to prove what's out there. So the mystery remains. Not confirmed, not denied, just waiting. What's leaving these impressions? Who or what is moving through these valleys under cover of night? The answers may lie just beyond the next bend. The footage begins without warning. A narrow dirt road stretches deep into Idaho's backcountry. No other vehicles, no distant voices, just the crunch of tires over gravel, the hum of solitude.
About 6 miles before my final destination, I run upon a Forest Service outpost, and the sign before it is a good sign.
And the creeping sense that something out here is watching. This wasn't just a casual trip. He had studied the region thoroughly, identifying it as a possible Bigfoot habitat due to its isolation and lack of human interference. Meadows, streams, and old-growth forests surrounded the area.
And since I've become a Bigfoot guy, I take an audio recorder and I put an audio recorder out every night whenever I go camping.
Far removed from any main roads or camping traffic. Fanny, the goal was clear: find evidence. And he came prepared. He brought an audio recorder, strategically placed it 3 miles into the wilderness, and then returned to camp, hoping to entice something or someone to follow him back. Watch yourself.
Yeah, this stuff's tall. Tall as I am. Taller.
In this segment, he sets up his camp near a quiet stream and explains the plan. Record potential sounds and activity overnight while documenting everything on camera. The area is still and heavy with silence, perfect conditions for any large creature to go unnoticed. As evening falls, the forest begins to change.
Just to say, hey, this is what I saw. I am so bummed. So as far as the description goes, seeing it and thinking about it, I remember seeing something similar to it online like 5 or 6 years ago or something.
Light fades quickly, the wind calms, and the atmosphere grows tense. The camper starts a fire, surrounded by towering trees and distant rustles. But what starts as a peaceful night quickly turns into something else. He begins hearing movement from the tree line, not loud but unmistakable. A steady shifting, deliberate and heavy, just out of sight to his left. This was no deer. Watch yourself.
And I grab my memory card, I put my memory card in, I get back out, bring it up, and of course, it's gone. It's not there. Yeah, and I scan everywhere, and this is me scanning everywhere, and I'm shaking. You can see how bad I'm shaking. I am just shaking because this is so crazy, but I mean, I don't see anything.
He grabs his newly purchased night vision goggles, still fresh from the box. In a moment of pure tension, he fumbles with the batteries, hands shaking slightly as the sounds from the trees continue. When he finally gets the goggles powered on, he scans the darkness. And there it was, something tall, standing upright, staring Tech. At first it didn't move. Then, slowly, it began to lean.
Okay, this is way lower, but I'm doing live video far away with the video camera, and then I'm also doing a test. Count my stats from here. 1, 2.
Not a sway, a deliberate sideways lean, further than any normal person could go. It straightened up, then leaned again, opposite direction. Back and forth, not rocking, but bending, watching. The figure's proportions and movement didn't align with any known animal. The bending was fluid, but too deep, unnatural. The camper's internal instincts were screaming, "This isn't human," yet his eyes confirmed it was there. Watch yourself.
At night from the night vision camera, and this is the daytime recreation. And it's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. This leaning tree's there, this leaning tree's there. My recollection is, it was about probably this head branch tall, which is this over here.
Through the night vision lens, he could see the figure's dark outline, faintly illuminated in infrared. It stood motionless between each lean, as if trying to study him without approaching. The behavior matched numerous eyewitness reports describing Bigfoot's so-called swaying behavior. Though in this case, the creature wasn't swaying, but leaning, peering, evaluating.
But it looks a little different during the daytime. A little bit different angle. I might have been taller here to my eyes versus on the tripod here. So I had two cameras rolling at the same time. This side is, just what it looks like with your own eyes, the camera not zoomed in.
The encounter lasted long enough to leave a permanent mark on the camper's memory. There was no charge, no sound, no aggressive gesture, just presence. A silent, towering figure moving in a way that defied logic. Was it curiosity that brought the figure so close? Was it following his trail from the recorder site exactly as he'd planned?
Okay, this is where I first go, is the farthest way it probably is. It's probably right there. I go to where that tree's leaning over, and then I come back a little closer. I think I come back too close here. And you can see the difference in both.
Or had he trespassed into territory rarely disturbed, and the creature was simply observing? No answers came that night. But the footage, the reaction, and the sequence of events, recorded and documented, add to a growing body of eerily similar encounters. And so, the mystery deepens. What exactly is watching from the woods? In the remote stillness of Harwood Forest, Northumberland, one man set out to spend a solitary night under the dense canopy of an ancient woodland. Known for its moody atmosphere and rich history, Harwood has long been a magnet for hikers, campers, and those seeking silence. But on this night, something else stirred beneath the pine-covered slopes.
Welcome back to the channel, Mandingos. Today I'm out by myself. Unfortunately, little Mick can't make it. I called for him this morning, I knocked on his door, and his dad said he's been up all night ill. So you're gonna have to put up with me by myself today. This is where I'm at.
The journey began at Winter's Gibbet, a bleak and windswept location tied to one of Northumberland's darker historical episodes. The wooden structure, perched against a backdrop of gray skies, marks the execution site of William Winter in 1792, an ominous choice for a starting point.
So I'll have to be careful where I set up. Should be great. Anyway, first we're going to check out a little bit of history over there. Let's go. See you in a sec.
but for the host of the Blot Outdoors show, it was all part of the experience. He hiked deeper into Harwood Forest, carefully selecting a clearing to pitch his tent. The surroundings were quiet, almost unnervingly so. Only the wind sifting through the trees and the occasional call of a distant bird broke the silence.
I've just been sitting quiet, drinking me can, and I can't hear a thing. So I think I'm just far enough away from them. Hopefully they don't start messing about later on.
As dusk settled, he prepared his evening meal, a couple of burgers, 2 Cornish pasties, and other simple comforts. Spirits were high, and plans were in place to enjoy the night, including a whiskey tasting. But as daylight faded, so did the calm. The first sign that something was off came quietly. 2 Cornish pasties were missing, then some meat.
And I'm going to eat well tonight, Mandingos. I've got the usual chorizo, peppered salami. I've got myself a couple of Cornish pasties.
At first, the explanation seemed simple, perhaps careless placement or animals. But the food had been inside the camp area, seemingly undisturbed by wildlife. He had passed a group of young campers earlier in the day. Suspicion pointed there, though no confrontation took place. As darkness fell, the mood changed. Watch yourself.
I know there's a better spot. I wouldn't. We'll have a mooch about and we'll see what's about.
Low tapping sounds began to echo just outside the tent. Not a branch falling, not the breeze. Deliberate, close. The kind of sound that suggests intent. Then silence, that heavy, watching kind. The camera captures the moment clearly. Tense breathing, hesitation, and then a decision to unzip the tent and look.
To be honest, everywhere I've seen so far is no better than what we've already got. I'll go up a little bit further here.
A flashlight sweeps the darkness, catching only swaying trees and empty ground. No eye shine, no movement, but the feeling of being watched lingers. Later, a clearer explanation surfaces. The host's close friend, known to viewers as Little Mick, emerges from the shadows, revealing that he had followed the expedition in secret, intending to play a prank. Dressed in a makeshift costume,
Do you know what I mean? I've been shiting myself all night in the woods here, and it's Little Mick all the time, taking the piss out of us.
he'd staged the eerie tapping and stolen the food, mimicking the signs often reported in alleged Bigfoot encounters. Watch yourself.
Can't even find your tent. You got the there. What the is this? It's me. Good hell, man. It's strange. Sorry for the language, guys. 2 Cornish pasties and meat's gone. I mustn't like peppered salami, that's still there.
Laughter follows. Tension dissolves. But what remains is a striking demonstration of how easily the human mind, even in control, can be pushed toward uncertainty in the forest's isolation. In the final segment, the two sit beside a low-burning fire, reviewing the Woodsman blended Scotch whiskey. The taste, bold, oaky, with a smooth finish. Rated a firm 8.5 out of 10.
You smell like a toffee vanilla smell.
Aye. Vanilla.
Anyway, that's enough of the sniffing. Let's go on with the tasting. Rights.
But the experience of the night, both real and orchestrated, left a lasting impression beyond the campfire glow. Harwood Forest is no stranger to legends. From local folk tales to unexplained sightings, its dense tree lines and hushed clearings provide fertile ground for mystery. Though this encounter was ultimately explained, it raises a larger question. How often do we dismiss strange happenings as jokes, pranks, or tricks when they might not be? Watch for yourself.
Hey folks, I know I'm being silly. Just, you know, when you're in the woods or something like that and you get that horrible feeling you're not by yourself. That's what I got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the tent now. We'll continue the Wasky review in the tent. That way I'll feel a bit safer. I know I'm just being daft, but anyway, let's go in the tent and we'll do the Wasky review there. You know, makes sense.
What if no one had revealed themselves? And how many so-called hoaxes have left behind traces that still defy explanation? In the wild, even laughter can leave shadows.
Why, it looks like a Sasquatch, Mick. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed it. Obviously, as you can tell, we've had a good time.
In the deep woods of southern Illinois, near the edge of the Shawnee National Forest, Red Room Films documents an investigation tied to one of the region's lesser-known legends, the Pond Creek Monster. This is an area layered in folklore, where dense forest, steep hills, and scattered rural homesteads form a perfect backdrop for the unexplained. But here, the stories are not just old tales, they're still unfolding. The documentary opens with an on-site interview. A local resident, calm but clearly unsettled, recounts a moment that changed how he viewed the woods behind his home. Watch yourself as he stands near a gently sloping ridge. From his position, he gestures toward the crest of a hill where, 1 year earlier, he spotted a figure crouched low to the ground.
I saw something that had its back to me down like this and was like digging into the hill.
Yeah.
And like throwing its arm back. And when it threw its arm back, that's what caught my attention. Because I saw this long arm, like take my arm and add another half of an arm.
What'd you think it was at first? Like when you first saw it?
When I first saw it, I'm just like...
Like were you thinking Bigfoot when you saw it, or?
At first I was like, what is that?
The creature appeared to be digging or pulling at the earth. Its arm, long and unnaturally fluid in motion, swung backward in a way that caught his attention. Even from 50 to 60 yards out, the proportions seemed off, longer than human, heavier, dark in color. He couldn't identify it at first. It didn't register as a known animal. Only later, after considering the motion, the posture, and the size, did he start to question whether it could have been a Sasquatch. Months later, the growth around the ridge has thickened. Rain and time have softened the earth, but the memory remains vivid. The investigation continues deeper into the property. Watch yourself as attention shifts to a tree roughly 10 to 12 feet tall, showing a strange sign, more than just a break.
Somewhere in here, now, like I said, it's been a year, all the rain, you know, a lot more growth now, but about, say, 10, I'm gonna say a good 10 feet, maybe 12 at the most. One of these trees had a break, but it wasn't just a break. It was twisted. And I mean, I'm no Bigfoot researcher, famous person, nothing like that, but I do pay attention to posts and things I see.
The wood has been twisted, not snapped clean, and the fibers splinter outward in a spiral. This isn't typical of storm damage or decay. While the eyewitness admits he isn't a Bigfoot expert, he's familiar with reports of such signs being interpreted as territorial markers or warnings in Sasquatch research circles. Later in the documentary, they find signs of recent ground disturbance near a wooded clearing. Watch yourself as they examine what looks like the result of rooting, similar to what a hog might cause.
Bryce noticed this. It looks like a hog. What you would think a hog is digging up. There are no hogs around here.
No, I've never heard of hogs in southern Illinois.
Deer, but I don't ever remember seeing a deer dig like that.
Does that look like big toe and toe prints and all that right there to you in there?
I mean,
Maybe?
But here's the issue. No one in the area keeps hogs, and wild hogs are not reported in this part of southern Illinois. The gouged earth lacks the pattern of deer activity as well. What draws their focus is the faint outline pressed into the soil, possibly a footprint. It's not clear or sharply defined, but certain shapes stand out. A broad pad, subtle toe impressions. Nothing conclusive, but enough to raise questions. When viewed from an angle, the formation of what might be a large toe becomes more convincing. Still, it's subtle, just enough to keep the possibility alive. Behind the camera, the terrain remains quiet. But those interviewed speak of persistent whoops at night, tree knocks echoing through the woods, and uneasy moments when they've felt watched from beyond the tree line. The Shawnee National Forest has long been a place of mystery. Known for ancient rock formations and deep natural corridors, it offers seclusion and silence, the kind that can both shelter and conceal. In places like this, where the veil between the known and unknown grows thin, even a passing sound can take on weight. Could the creature seen that day have been the elusive Pond Creek monster? Rooted in old legends but now backed by first-hand encounters and unexplained signs? Or is southern Illinois hiding something older, something not yet defined? The forest doesn't answer directly. But the evidence lingers in the broken trees, the disturbed earth, and the quiet tension that never fully lifts. By late evening, the mountain cold had settled across the dense forests of British Columbia's Chilowak River Valley. The last rays of daylight faded behind the ridgelines, casting long shadows through the timber. Alone, miles from the nearest camp, the creator of adventures in BC had just zipped into his tent for the night. It was around 11 p.m. when the stillness was broken. First came the sound of heavy footfalls, slow, deliberate, and distinctly bipedal. Not the shuffle of a bear, nor the skitter of a deer. These steps moved upright, circling the tent with unnerving calm. Then came a new sound, a faint impact. Something had disturbed the carefully balanced rock stack beside his tent. Only the topmost stone had been knocked down, 4 feet off the ground. The rest of the structure remained untouched. Watch yourself as the moment of realization hits. He knocked over my rock.
So to hear anything is to let you know something's going on. So here we are. There's our, as you see, they're still standing.
The pattern was too precise to be coincidence. Moments later, 3 clear knocks echoed through the trees. Measured, intentional, as if marking presence. By morning, daylight revealed the details in full. The rock stack was still standing, except for that top stone. A stone that had to be touched with purpose to fall without toppling the rest. Watch yourself to see the stacked stones.
Now, this is the rock statue, the balanced rocks that we're talking about. This rock was knocked off of here. Give you some idea how high this is. This is perched on a large boulder.
Perched on a large boulder, the top reached chest height. The rocks were solid, their balance stable. Not easily disturbed by wind or small animals, and far too precise to have fallen on their own. The ground nearby, hard-packed gravel, should have masked any subtle tracks. But there they were, impressions that matched a human stride, but were far too large. A heel, 5 toes, roughly size 15. Watch yourself to examine the print in detail.
Do we see that? Do you see that? Because that is my foot. I'm a size 12. Hey, look here. We have a heel, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes. This looks like a left foot imprint.
Beside his own size 12 foot, the print stood out. A left foot impression, with all 5 toes visible, roughly 15 to 16 inches in length. Not deep enough to cast, but visible enough to measure. He followed the direction of the prints through the underbrush. Something had circled his tent, not once, but completely around. Through thick nettles and brush no person would casually wander into. Each step matched an upright stride. From the slope to the flat ground, the prints told a story. Something walked right up to the tent, knocked the top rock, and kept moving. No crashing, no fleeing. It lingered, observed. As he stood at the edge of his camp, he pieced it together. While lying down, the noise had come from right behind his head, exactly where the rock stack had been placed. Whatever approached had done so silently, except for the calculated knocks and the fall of one single stone. This wasn't a bear. Bears don't knock, and they certainly don't remove just one stone from a structure without disturbing the rest. Watch yourself as he retraces the path.
But this is where we're at, back in here. This is where he came. This is where whatever was walking came through here. Now, this is hard to see. That is quite definitive. I'm no expert, but what I heard was something bipedal.
The second night, despite the tension, he remained. And again, the knocking returned. Faint, from within the trees. Then silence. No other campers were near. The nearest people were 5 kilometers down the road. He was utterly alone, save for whatever had passed by his tent. Yet, he wasn't panicked. He stayed, observed, documented. In the final shots, we see the vast remoteness of his location. Deep forest, no lights, no traffic, just wilderness. He describes the Chilowak River Valley as infamous for sightings, stories of creatures unknown, especially ones that walk at night. So what walked those bipedal steps under cover of night? What removed the top stone without tipping the rest? What knocked 3 times before disappearing into the trees? There are no answers here, only questions that linger like the echo of footsteps outside a tent, alone, in the wild. Under the dense canopy of West Virginia's Allegheny Highlands, Small Town Monsters returns with a boots-on-the-ground investigation. This is a place where isolation isn't just geographical, it's experiential. Every sound is sharper, every shadow deeper. With limited daylight and miles of thick forest between landmarks, the terrain offers natural concealment for anything determined to stay unseen. The team begins their exploration near a limestone outcrop. Beneath it, a narrow cave mouth opens into darkness.
And what's crazy is, right, you've got these kinds of caves all over the place here. I mean, imagine something coming in here and hiding. You could hide in here until nightfall when it knows people aren't going to come in.
Watch yourself as they pause at the entrance. The air is cool here, noticeably different from the heat outside. The trail leading to it is barely a footpath, tight, crowded with vegetation. Inside, the cave vanishes quickly into blackness. It's the kind of place where visibility drops to 0 just a few steps in. It doesn't need to be deep, just hidden. Long enough for something to slip in, wait, and slip back out. Time passes. As daylight begins to fade, the group prepares to move out. A faint, distant light becomes their only orientation point.
Take along through here. Yeah. That trail's not very big, so we'll take it right out there and set it down and so we can see our way back.
There it is.
The path narrows again, and the forest closes in. Tense electronic music underlines the moment. It's subtle, but there's an undercurrent of urgency, like something is just out of frame. Then, movement. Thermal gear picks up a form tucked between trees. Watch yourself.
See that shiny bit?
Oh.
Now it's gone.
Oh, I did. I saw it disappear. Weird.
It was way back there, huh? But yeah, I mean, it's far back there. I don't know how deep that is. I can still see it on a thermal.
I can see a fog. The second object is, I think it's back.
Yeah, it's not looking at us anymore.
Can you see it with that there still?
The image isn't clear, but the heat signature is undeniable. It's upright, or at least partially so. A rounded surface reflects back, a head shape maybe. Then, without movement, it's gone. No sound, no visible shift. But the signal on the thermal fades. A second form appears faintly beside where the first had been, though details remain unclear. The terrain here is uneven. Fallen trees, gullies, and heavy brush limit line of sight. The team observes quietly. There is no approach, just observation. The heat returns briefly, but it no longer faces them. It's still, present but indifferent. One of the investigators uses a second viewing device to confirm the shape is still there. Much later, the atmosphere shifts once more. The forest feels quieter. The wind has settled.
You see that? It's either not moving or it's an object, but it's giving off the heat signature of a living creature to me. I've seen so many rocks and it does not, and there's almost something to the side of it. Almost looks like fire. I don't want to say it's a person down there, but it does not look like it's moving now. Whatever it is, it's stationary. It's something. I don't know what it is. It's...
A new thermal signature appears, this time across a drop in the terrain. The figure is still and large, big enough to be concerning, but not immediately identifiable. It doesn't move. It radiates heat in a solid, steady glow, contrasting against the surrounding cold. No breathing patterns, no swaying, just stillness. Another outline seems to hover beside it. Less defined, but present. Nothing about the scene suggests randomness. These aren't scattered heat flares from small animals or warm stones. They hold shape and presence. But without movement or confirmation, the questions deepen. Is this the same form seen earlier? Did it retreat deeper into the forest and wait? And more importantly, why remain still for so long in complete silence? The team eventually backs away without resolution. No answers, no contact. Only what the cameras recorded. In the quiet of the West Virginia wilderness, where visibility is measured in yards and sound is swallowed by thick woods, the presence remains unconfirmed, but never dismissed. Could these heat signatures belong to something unknown? Or are we misinterpreting natural patterns beneath the veil of curiosity? The forest doesn't answer. It never does. In the deep greens of Oregon's ancient forests, a stillness sets in, one that carries more than silence. It holds presence. For those attuned to it, the line between visible and invisible becomes fragile. The YouTube channel Oregon Sasquatch Encounter doesn't just document the forest. It claims to bridge a deeper relationship, one born from spiritual contact and guided by the Sasquatch themselves. In a recent recording, that connection appears to take shape right before the lens. A dark, rounded form begins to emerge from the brush. Subtle, but deliberate. A large head breaks from the visual rhythm of the trees, its contours distinct enough to arrest the eye. Then, by the time the camera pans slightly, a shoulder becomes visible, sloping downward with mass. The outline isn't bark. It's not stone. It's something else.
Right now, he's a big guy. Right here. I can see his head's right there. And his shoulder and arm comes down.
The figure phases in and out. Light plays tricks. But this is different. It darkens, fades, then sharpens again. The narrator remarks how each time the figure lightens, it challenges your belief. But then the shadow returns, affirming what was barely seen. Later in the footage, the focus shifts to another ambiguous form. At first glance, it might seem like a stump, but something's off. There's no rear structure, no sign of it connecting with the ground in a natural way. The silhouette stands alone, elevated, slightly curved. The camera zooms in.
I think it's a Sasquatch. I mean, look at that. That sticks out. It's kind of hard to tell if it's a Sasquatch or a stump, like the ass end of a stump that's laying on the ground.
As the light shifts, texture emerges. A faint reddish-brown tone, almost auburn. Hair.
I could see some hair. I think I almost see like...
Not the rough, brittle kind seen on mossy bark, but fine and buff. Then another shift behind the figure. A transparent shimmer, like heat rising, but with no source. The narrator calls it cloak.
So there's cloak back there. Back behind it I see cloak. This is interesting.
And though the word is speculative, the phenomenon is hard to ignore. As the video reaches its final segment, a second figure appears. Smaller, denser, motionless but clearly shaped. The narrator points again. He knows this location well, yet cannot see the figure with his own eyes, even while staring at the exact coordinates through the lens.
Look at that, there's another something going on there. That's definitely some energy. The sun's messing with them. The sun's starting to come out and it's messing with them. That looks like a real small one right there. I think that's a Sasquatch.
Light hits the object just right, revealing movement. Hair seems to drift with the wind. The narrator quietly notes his gut feeling. It's not just shadow, it's a being. And as the sun shifts again, a sense of energy briefly flashes in the field, distorting part of the image. Something's there. What's captured here isn't dramatic, it isn't loud, it's quiet, intentional, elusive. If Sasquatch do exist, perhaps this is exactly how they'd appear. Just barely, just enough. Do you see what's hiding in plain sight? Or is it hiding at all? You ever get that feeling like you're being watched? Not in the city, not in a crowd, but somewhere quiet, isolated, where every sound echoes and the silence feels thick. That's what one man felt deep in the forests of North America. He wasn't out there for anything special, no research, no hunting, just a breath of fresh air, far away from the static of city life. The trees were tall, the forest floor soft with moss. Birds chirped, sunlight filtered gently through the pine branches. Everything felt normal, until it didn't. The man had stopped for a sip of water when something shifted at the edge of his vision. He turned slowly, and that's when he saw it. A figure, large, dark, upright.
It's crazy.
It moved between the trees like it belonged there, not crawling, not hunched, but walking, with long, heavy steps. Its shoulders were massive, arms dangling unnaturally low, swaying slightly as it moved. It was tall, thick, covered head to toe in coarse black hair. But what struck him most wasn't the size. It was the way it moved. There was no panic, no fear. It walked calmly, confidently, like it knew this place, like it owned it, and maybe like it knew it was being watched. The hiker barely breathed. He raised his phone, hit record. You can see it in the clip. The creature doesn't turn, doesn't speed up. It just keeps walking, straight through dense underbrush, like none of it matters. Almost as if it's leading him or warning him. The man whispered to himself, "This isn't right. I'm not supposed to see this." And maybe he wasn't. For years, legends have whispered about creatures in these woods. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, forest giants. But they always vanish before we get proof. Every photo is blurry. Every video is shaky. Every witness is left with more questions than answers. But what if it's not just one? What if they're out there, many of them, watching us from the shadows, walking the same trails, hearing every twig we step on, smelling us long before we know they're there? Every year, hikers disappear. Campers vanish. Some are found. Most aren't. And the forest never says a word. So next time you're alone in the woods and the wind dies, the birds go quiet, and your gut tells you to turn back. Maybe listen, because whatever's watching you might not be human. It was a quiet ride through the deep woods of Massachusetts. The kind of solo escape most mountain bikers dream about. No crowds, no traffic, just the sound of tires crunching over dirt and the wind moving through trees older than any town nearby. It was 2015, and this rider, armed with a GoPro, was ready to capture his day in the wild. The forest was thick, branches hung low. Sunlight barely pierced through the dense green above. It was peaceful, untouched, the kind of place that hides more than it reveals. Then, it happened. The rider slowed down. He'd seen something. Just off the trail, between the trees, movement, small, quick, but not in a way he could explain. It wasn't a deer, it wasn't a rabbit, it wasn't anything he'd seen on these trails before. It moved differently. He pulled over. The GoPro picked up the tension in his breath, the way the camera began to shake slightly in his hands. His voice dropped to a whisper, and then, a flash. A figure darted between the trunks, covered in hair, low to the ground, upright. It didn't crawl, it didn't hop. It ran, on two legs, like a child running through the woods, but wild. He panned the camera, tried to zoom in, but the thing had already vanished into the undergrowth, moving like it knew the land, knew how to hide, how to disappear before anyone got a clear look. Some might laugh and say it was a baby bear, but when you watch the clip, when you pause it, frame by frame, you see something else. The posture, the proportion, the strange grace in its movement, something that doesn't add up. And that's what unsettled him the most, because if it was a baby, where was the mother? For a moment he just stood there. The trail he'd loved for years now felt strange, unfamiliar, like the woods weren't just trees and moss anymore, but something alive, watching, deciding. Massachusetts has always carried its share of wilderness legends, but this was real, caught on camera, brief as it was. So the next time you're alone on a forest trail, breathing in the silence, surrounded by nothing but woods, keep your eyes open, because if that was a young Sasquatch, then something much bigger is out there too, and it's probably not far behind. British Columbia, the Tantalus Range, remote, jagged, icy. It was July 2nd, 20th, a clear summer day in the high alpine. Wildlife biologist Miles Lamont was hiking near Squamish, Canada, when he noticed something unusual.
We're on top of Tricuni Peak, and pretty sure there's just Sasquatch down there.
Oh my god.
I can't really see it very well. There's this little black dot walking in the middle of the snow, in the middle of nowhere.
High above the valley floor, near 7,000 feet elevation, a tiny black figure moved across a snowy ridge. From that distance, it looked like a speck. But it wasn't still. It was climbing. Fast, upright, deliberate. Lamont caught it on film, puzzled. "If that's a human," he said.
Why would he walk up that way? If that was a human, why would you walk up that ridge or that snow line? Why would you not just go straight down?
Why would they be walking up that ridge? No one hikes uphill into the cold unless they have a reason. And certainly not without gear. No backpacks, no snowshoes, no visible equipment. Just a lone, dark figure moving across deep snow as if the terrain didn't matter. Lamont, an experienced outdoorsman and wildlife biologist, had seen plenty of backcountry travelers.
Good thing we brought beers. We could lure him over here. Dude, that's bizarre.
This wasn't like any of them. His voice in the footage carries a strange mix of curiosity and tension. He even jokes, maybe if we had a few beers, we could lure him over. But he's unsettled. This was not quite like any of those, he later said. It was a bit different. The video stirred up waves online. Debates erupted. Was it a person? Or something else?
We're in the middle of nowhere right now. I don't know how high we are, but we're probably close to 7,000 feet. 6,500 maybe.
That's when a man named Peter Tennant, or Ridgewalker Pete, stepped forward. He claimed the figure was him. A solo hiker from White Rock, BC, Pete said he had been in the area that same summer. No pack, no snowshoes, just an emergency locator. He was exploring. Simple, harmless. But then, the timeline unraveled.
But I mean, he's hiking through snow like it's his job. And where the hell is he going? I mean, there's nowhere to go that way.
Pete claimed he was on Tricuni Mountain during the last week of July. Lamont's footage, dated July 2nd, 3 weeks apart, different locations, same range, but not the same day. So if it wasn't Pete, who or what was it? A figure, alone, high in the snow, without gear, moving quickly where few dare to tread. In the deep wilderness of British Columbia, far from roads and watchers, maybe legends walk the ridgelines after all. And sometimes, we catch them on camera.
I don't...
The LeBarge Creek region of southwestern Wyoming is remote, rugged, and layered in silence. Tucked between pine-thick slopes and winding tributaries, this part of the Bridger-Teton National Forest has seen little change over the decades. Yet for those who've spent time deep in these woods, the stillness holds more than just isolation. In the early 1960s, Michael Nelson was just a child. His family camped often in these backwoods near Clear Creek, a tributary flowing into LeBarge Creek. One afternoon, while heading to the creek to collect water, something unexpected shifted his understanding of the forest forever. Just as he bent near the edge of the water, he became aware of a presence, not from sound, but from the sensation of being watched. Turning slowly, he found himself face to face with a figure standing only 12 inches away. The creature was massive, covered in dark hair, yet with facial features that were mostly bare. Its skin, described as grayish-black, held a texture unlike any human. There was no fur on the cheeks or forehead, and the eyes, wide and deep, stared directly into his. There was no aggression, no movement, only a prolonged, silent gaze that seemed to study him as much as he was studying it.
My father, my sisters, my brother, and I were camped on Clear Creek. It's a drainage of LeBarge Creek. My dad had left camp early to go check on one of the herds and move them to a new feeding location. It was still dark outside, but I was awake and up as usual with him to see him off.
The standoff lasted seconds, yet for a young child, it stretched time. And just as suddenly as it began, the creature turned and vanished back into the forest. That was not the only encounter. Years later, during another family outing in the same area, Michael witnessed what appeared to be the same type of creature. This time it was crouched beside his sister's sleeping bag. The figure leaned over her silently, again with no signs of hostility or violence. It moved away as quietly as it had come.
I woke up in the middle of the night. The sky was clear. I remember seeing the stars and the moonlight, which lit up a large man-like figure that was leaning over, looking at my sister next to me.
These events, as reported by Nelson, were later submitted to the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization and shared with the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization for documentation. They remain among the rare cases involving such close proximity, particularly the Clear Creek incident, where the witness claimed to be only a foot from the creature's face. Not far from these events, another account surfaced, this time from a ranch hand working in the LeBarge Creek area. While out tending livestock near a remote tree line, the ranch hand claimed a large bipedal figure emerged from the brush. It moved with weight and purpose, walking directly past him at a close distance. He described thick, dark hair, immense shoulder width, and a height that exceeded any human norm. No words were exchanged. The animal looked once toward him, then continued walking into the timber without a sound.
I'd never heard or thought about Bigfoot or Sasquatch. It wasn't until I heard and saw the Patterson film and then the frozen body of the monster in the freezer that came through town that I could have put a name with these creatures or monsters.
Taken together, these incidents suggest something persistent in the area. A presence that's been seen across decades and generations by those living close to the land. No photos, no footage, only memory, impressions in the dirt, and the quiet weight of an experience that never leaves the witness. As always, what exactly was encountered remains unconfirmed. Yet these are not isolated reports. They form a pattern, consistent descriptions, consistent locations, and consistent silence from the forest after the moment passes.
Star Valley area next to Grover State Park. Our property actually buttons up next to that. It was a really remote place when I was a kid. Now there's quite a few more summer cabins and whatnot, but my parents inherited some of that property and we camped there every summer, so I spent most of my summers there.
Could these reports represent an undiscovered species? Or are they something else entirely? Misunderstood, misremembered, or perhaps deeply rooted in human perception? Whatever the answer, the forests surrounding LeBarge Creek remain just as quiet as they were 60 years ago. And whatever moved within them may still be there. The scars remain, but the questions only deepen. Was it truly Bigfoot, or something else entirely? The forest gave no answers, only silence. This case stands unmatched in brutality and mystery. As more reports surface, one truth becomes clear. Something powerful roams unseen. Will you be ready if it comes closer?